This is why, Mr. Chairman, this is what I call an underwhelming budget. Now, let me look at specific sectors. M.S. Swaminathan had famously said, if agriculture goes wrong, nothing else will have a chance to go right. This, I believe, is as good a starting point as any. Mr. Chairman, it's high time we stop treating agriculture as some issue that will sort itself out, because 46.1% of India's workforce and 60% of our population depend on agriculture and allied activities. Despite agriculture contributing 16 to 17% of GDP, it receives only 3% of this union budget, 1.62 lakh crore, which is a 5.1% cut from last year's 1.71 lakh crore. Now, this underinvestment is all the more alarming, Mr. Chairman, given the existential threats facing Indian agriculture today. This sector, vital as it is increasingly threatened by climate change and misaligned farming practices. Nearly two-thirds of the country are prone to drought, and the toll of weather-related disasters has been severe. Yet the Fasal Bima Yojana, meant to protect farmers, has failed. Flawed assessments and opaque settlements have reduced compensation to token amounts. 1 rupee, 3 rupees, 21 rupees, as your minister himself has acknowledged, turning protection into systemic injustice. Matters are worsened by cuts that leave the scheme at its lowest budget allocation in 8 years, fueling fears that new initiatives will repeat a familiar cycle of announcement without commitment, as seen last year when Gradley announced missions on cotton technology, pulses, vegetables, fruits, and hybrid seeds, all quietly faded with zero funding in the revised estimates. These announcements are like modern courtships. Promises without commitment. That's what this government does to us. At a time when farm distress is deepening, the budget silence on revising the PM Kisan Nidhi disbursement speaks louder than any promise made elsewhere. हमारे किसानों की आय दोगुनी करने का वादा तो आपसे पूरा हो नहीं पाया। कम से कम उनकी सम्मान निधि ही बढ़ा दीजिए। पिछले 6 सालों से ये सिर्फ 6,000 रुपए पर ही अटकी हुई है। While there is an imperative need for breakthroughs in research and development and AI-driven agricultural technologies, paradoxically, funding allocations for agricultural research and education have dipped by 4.8% from the previous year's 10,466 crore, that's now to 9,967 crore, decreasing precisely when the finance minister is announcing new AI schemes. And frankly, Madam, touting a new AI app when the majority of our farmers can't afford fertilizers, harvesters, or tractors seems rather detached from reality, except of the virtual kind. Now, this budget speaks at length about crops from cashews to coconuts, yet ignores one of agriculture's most persistent concerns, pepper. Once hailed as black gold, the sector is now in distress in my state. In Kerala, which is one of the country's leading producers of pepper, output has fallen from 40,000 plus tons to 30,000 tons and is projected to decline by a further 28.7% in the foreseeable future. The uncomfortable truth, Mr. Chairman, is that our spice market faces such deep challenges today that if history repeated itself, the British might not even bother looting us for it. Next to unemployment. This House has had this conversation far too many times. We recite the same statistics, express the same concerns, and then move on, while unemployment quietly worsens. The data at the end of 2025 makes one thing unmistakably clear. Rural unemployment has stagnated at 3.9%, while urban unemployment continues to rise, ending at 6.7% in December. The crisis is now starting to concentrate where aspirations and frustrations are colliding in our cities. And yet even the centre's flagship responses have failed to rise to the moment. Under the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, barely 41% of certified candidates secured placements. More than half of those jobs were concentrated in just 5 sectors. And of the 1,380 crores released, 278 crores remained unutilized. The Prime Minister Internship Scheme tells a similar story. Allocation, 10,831 crores. Ministry spends 526 crores in the first 9 months. This pattern is recurrent, sir. In fiscal year 25, allocations were cut after large unspent balances, with actual spending at just 680 crores. So much for creating employment when we can't even spend the money allocated for the job of creating employment. And what of gig workers, the backbone of our new economy? There is no mention of them in the budget. Their welfare has been deprioritized at a time when unrest grows over the absence of clearly defined benefits, time-bound claims and appeals mechanisms, and mandatory disclosure of work hours, earnings and deductions. This silence further weakens the gig workers' access to social security in practice. Any discourse about the workers of our country stands incomplete without a discussion about Manrega, now replaced by the ambitious VB-G Act. It increased guaranteed workdays from 100 to 125, introduced weekly wage payments, but at the same time it hollowed out the legal employment guarantee. While Manrega was demand-driven, fully centrally funded for unskilled wages, and rooted in decentralized planning, the new Act caps central funding through state-wise normative allocations, shifts 40% of the wage costs to most states, and allows the scheme to be paused for up to 60 days during the peak agricultural seasons, shrinking the real window of guaranteed work. Once a state's allocation is exhausted, workers' statutory right to employment effectively ends. This converts an open-ended rights-based program into a budget-restricted, centrally rationed scheme where fiscal ceilings override legal entitlements. The VB-G scheme received a massive allocation of 95,000 crores in this budget, yet it has a major overlooked flaw that also needs to be addressed as soon as possible, Madam Minister. It attempts inclusion, but perhaps unintentionally drives technological exclusion. Manrega trusted the panchayats and gram sabhas to plan work based on local needs and community strengths. But the G Act mandates dashboards with GIS tools, PM Gati Shakti layers, central digital stacks. Local priorities are filtered through a Viksit Bharat National Rural Infrastructure Stack, making biometrics, geotagging, dashboards, and AI audits statutory requirements. Thus, for millions of tech workers, for rural workers, one tech failure will mean exclusion without appeal and work without skill considerations.
ലോകത്തെവിടെയായാലും ഏത് സമയത്തും 24 വാർത്തകളും ഓഗ്മെന്റഡ് റിയാലിറ്റി പാക്കേജുകളും എക്സ്പ്ലെയിനറുകളും വിശദമായി കാണാൻ ഞങ്ങളുടെ യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് സബ്സ്ക്രൈബ് ചെയ്യാം.